Welcome, this is LaBrava. We are presenting a Traditional Healers Forum from the four corners of the world. I'm here with my co-host, David Kukkola. And tell us about the interviews we just listened to.
Tonight's program has been on burnout, what we call a modern disease. And Bruce Elijah, Oneida Clan of the Iroquois Confederation, was talking about how in their village, how they addressed that. And I think one of his main points was family, and that isolation is a big cause. And that one of the ways that they heal that, or I don't even know how do you heal something they don't have, but the way that they stay strong is they know where they came from, they know who they are, and they know where they are going. And so knowing who I am gives an inner perspective that seems to feed you or feed a certain energy that carries you. It's almost as if you know your life purpose. And then Francis Weller, he was talking about the isolation also. And then that we have a compulsivity to produce. Earning my keep were Francis's words, and which created a huge separation from the cosmos, if you will. In other words, who we are is net worth. It's a financial number versus who I am becomes almost a material thing versus a soulful thing. And so he was talking about the need to have a friend, have friends, have someone you can lean on.
It seems a little bit simple, but at the same time, I think especially now with all the social network sites, people are having a really hard time connecting on a true level with people.
Face to face.
And I've noticed that it's very hard to communicate nowadays. People don't seem to get the nuances of feeling and emotion like they used to. So right now we have Rob Allbee. So for our listeners, he's the founder of Inside Circle Foundation and helping maximum security convicts actually take responsibility for their lives. And so you two are going to have a little discussion about our continuing topic of burnout.
Yeah, first I want to thank you, Rob, for being here again with us.
Yeah, it's great. It's great.
And taking time out from, I know, your busy schedule and all the work that you're doing there at Folsom Prison. Why don't we go in the direction of the community that you work with? Bruce talked about his, Francis, was talking about his community, and you work with men who are incarcerated.
I do.
And maybe life sentences.
Yep.
And so from this place of burnout, how do you men deal with that? What are the conversations like? How do you heal that in such a concrete environment?
Yeah. I was really struck by what both Bruce and Francis talked about earlier about the sense of community. And having been an ex-convict myself, I remember and recognizing the men that I work with what it feels like to really be isolated, not just in prison, but before I got to prison, I felt really isolated. And I think that need to be recognized for my own intrinsic value. I couldn't put it into words then, and a lot of guys that I work with couldn't put it into words when they first started this idea, but I think it's the same kind of essential or essence kind of urge that they feel lack of somewhere and can't articulate. And so when I heard them talk about, and it's true with the different indigenous cultures that I spent time with, is that those people in those cultures have a whole community that recognizes their own. I guess the easiest way is that each person in the community is seen with some unique connection to the sacred that they're embodying. And so when they bring that, they're recognized and seen. And it's cultivated in those people from the time they're born. They see that they carry a certain unique. We've used the word medicine, which is the same word as a gift. Each one of us has a gift that they're able to bring. And so these men in prison, a lot of them were never recognized in that way, seen as though they have some value somewhere. And so a lot of the work is to help them discover what it is that they have medicine for, what their medicine is. And even though I work with a lot of men who are never going to get released again, still as human beings, they want to have some sense of value, some sense of purpose. And so we really work hard at trying to find out what is that. And most often it begins with just letting them kind of talk about what they're feeling, what they're going through. And we have to work through a lot of anger, a lot of issues. But almost always it gets down to being seen. I know it's difficult even as we sit here, we're on the radio, you can't really see us. But communication doesn't, for me, I've kind of tried to help them to see that communication doesn't take place with words. It takes place in the eyes and the way we move our bodies, and there's a whole package there. And so it helps them to kind of start to begin to see, there's other than just words and just, and I think most often in culture, and Francis alluded to this too, we're taught from a really young age that we have to produce, we have to earn our keep, we have to be that somebody, and it almost always is a dollar sign. And so just trying to help one of the ways that we work with the men inside is just I ask them to just start writing. That's what saved my life when I was inside, is I just found a paper and a pencil and I just started putting it out there on paper for myself, not for anybody else. And so they begin to realize that they do have something else in there besides just being a gangbanger or just somebody who can get over on somebody else, or there's something. Oftentimes one of the exercises we do is I'll have them look around the circle and say, listen, as you look around these other men in this circle, you can just look at another man and know that thing about him that speaks when he doesn't. There's something about him. He's kind, he's thoughtful, he's fiery, there's something about him. That's the beginning of starting to cultivate medicine. And it's almost always, at least from my experience, we can almost always recognize it in each other, but it's real difficult to see it in ourselves. And so when I'm not paying attention to that in myself, then I feel like I'm setting myself up for that trap of burnout. Burnout, whether it's the job or relationships or my connection to sacred or whatever. If I'm not paying attention to that thing in me that really is who I am, I think I'm setting myself up for that possibility of burnout.
What I heard you say is that, again, you do this in circle.
Sure.
This isn't one-on-one therapy, but this is men in circle sharing their hearts.
Yeah, I mean, I do some one-on-one, not a lot, but primarily it's that sense of community. We're trying to create a sense where a place where they can belong, where they can see and be seen. Not just see others, but be seen too. It's as crucially important.
So you feel that this whole sense of belonging, the sense of community, again, is the healing salve, if you will.
Yeah, I just, we're social beings. Some people are able to live isolated and seem to be happy and thrive, but speaking for myself and most of the people I know, we are social creatures, and there is some power in that circle of giving and receiving compassion, being seen and being able to be seen, and that whole circle, the way it goes around.
And so then in that place of burnout, we were talking earlier the other day about it related to a part of us that isn't living our life purpose, and that maybe we are just that mechanism Doc was talking about. And maybe maybe it ties into there about, in the work we've done together, of living your medicine, living your gift.
Right. Or maybe it's shifted.
Yeah.
Sometimes it shifts. Sometimes we grow out of what we were doing that fed us, and maybe it's time to move on. It's time to go to the next thing, and I stay too long and it becomes burdensome. you know, it becomes hard, and I keep asking myself, why is this, you know, I used to love this, and it may just be, you know, our growing out of whatever we were in, or a way to do it in a new way. You know, I think that's what happens a lot in relationships, is people just, that initial fire, and then they go through a certain, and then they get that, oh geez, what am I doing? You know, I think it could be either time to just, all right, what am I doing? It might just be a new phase, a growing piece, or something that most often it feels to me when I've been through that either it was time to go for a big change or to shift what I was doing in some way.
And then back to the prison work you do, I know you co-founded the Inside Circle Foundation, and I know that a big driving force of that was, again, you needing to belong.
Sure.
And maybe you could talk to us a little bit about that.
Sure. I get seen in a unique way there. All the things that I went through as a kid, all the time I spent was in my teens and 20s. And as I moved out of that and changed my life, and, you know, I shot heroin most of my life, and as I slowly broke away from that and found jobs and stable relationships and kind of got my life together, I felt like I'd just thrown all those years in the dump. You know, like I'd just wasted them. And when I started to go back into the prison, it felt like for the first time those years had value somewhere. They don't have a lot of value most often out here. They don't. Maybe I could have done it in another way, but in there, those years, it was like redeeming. It's like, wow, I really felt like I didn't just waste my time. You know, I didn't just blow it, you know. And I was able to be seen and appreciated, and be able to see and appreciate. And I think that made a big difference.
And so in that place of you finding that place where you can be seen, it gave life purpose, and it took you out of that modern concept called burnout, if you will.
Sure.
And so then what do we say to our listeners tonight that maybe they're asking that question, and I'm sure you've heard it from many of your people, is what is my life purpose? You know, how do I find that? Why, you know, if I was born with it, of which I believe we are, how does someone start venturing in that arena of finding their life purpose, so that this modern mechanism called burnout can maybe be put over here somewhere, and they can get then charged,
Sure.
by that life force that wants to just flow through us as we create, because I believe it's a creative energy.
Absolutely. You know, I think the very first step is to learn how to get quiet. You know, I think that most often when I, or in the past, or somebody else has talked to me about this concept, they try to overstuff with other stuff. You know, they try to overcompensate by, you know, getting a boat or trying a new hobby or what. You know, what's worked for me is to try to just get quiet and listen what really matters. Try to really listen to what maybe the universe or spirit or whatever your concept of that is, to start to tap into how do I reconnect with that part of me that we talked about earlier about, that might be the sacred. When
you say get quiet, why don't you elaborate on it?
I mean, literally get quiet. I mean, turn the TV off, take time for yourself, go for walks, write, listen, you know, not so busy stuff, but maybe just kind of, you know, turn the volume down a little bit and see if you can, you know, start to listen to something other than what's been the noise so far.
And so it's sort of what we've been talking about is moving away from isolation into community, into family. But also there's another element that Rob's bringing up, is that there's also some self-quiet time that's required, and so that we can tap into the village that lives inside of us.
Sure, and I don't know that it's so much of just quiet's concept. I mean, just to be able to, for me, I have to really start to lower all the noise inside my head in order just to be able to hear you. So when you talk about being in touch with your family and your village and your friends, for me, I have to kind of get quiet to do that. And so part of me is to slow down enough to be able to hear what I really believe that the universe or spirit or whatever that concept is speaks through other people to me and through, a lot of different mechanisms. But part of it is, am I capable of hearing what's trying to be presented to me? Am I capable of really going inside and examining what my heart really wants? Or am I just with that busy action all the time and the busyness of trying to pay the bills and keep the job going and whatever all that takes, and the relationships and the kids and all of it, So it feels like at least initially is to begin to try to listen to that deeper voice.
And so in the greater context of things, where do you put burnout? How come that word has come into, or that concept's come into our culture today? How was it born? What was it born from or of?
Well, I think culturally, and both Bruce and Francis alluded to this, culturally, we're taught that we just have to be on point all the time and be ahead of the game and earning and keeping our keep. And so constantly that's part of our consciousness is, how do I stay up on the game? How do I get in the fast lane? How do I, it's constantly a part of that. And there's, I don't think it's anything but inevitable that sooner or later the soul starts to say, wait a minute, there's got to be something other than this. There's got to be more to it.
And so maybe you're talking about core values, of maybe trying to find what those core values are?
Well, sure. I mean, when you talk about, we've used the word medicine and people's gifts and their connection to the sacred, I think we're all talking about the same thing. Fundamentally is how do I really begin to be who I really am instead of who I was told I should be?
Ah, there we go.
That's it. Who I really am, not who I was told I should be.
Right. And I think all of us are so preoccupied. I mean, from the first grade on, kindergarten on, we're told what we're not, and just packed full of data, and that whole thing of you got to keep living up, got to keep getting more and more, keep becoming more and more. That's a pretty fundamental concept in our culture. And what I've noticed about indigenous cultures is they don't really come at it from that perspective. It's really about, can we nurture in this person who they really are? Can we figure out a way to really support them in being that, instead of trying to fill them with all the data? Instead of trying to fill them with what we think. What do they really need?
Sort of a big sense of lack.
I think all of us grow up with something that sort of
not enough.
Man, I just can't quite pull it off. I can't quite do it.
Yeah.
Even though I'm putting on a good face, I feel like I'm not quite there.
And I wonder how much of that ties into our prisons overflowing. How much does this concept of burnout tie into incarceration? Is it at these, for example, our young men? Is there such a lack, that sense of burnout? There's how do I feel this thing?
Well, I think a couple of different things come into play, especially as young men go into prison. One is a lot of them are so apathetic to begin with that they just don't think they can make it anyway. So they don't care to play by the rules that we normally set up in our lives.
That's what I say. Already burned out.
They start out as I'm not going to make it anyway. So let me just join this thing. These people at least appreciate me, and let me just be part of this. It's exciting and it's fun and it's it's enticing at that age.
Yeah.
But the other piece is that we really don't teach our young people how to be who they really are at their core essence, at their real fundamental. We really don't have very many mechanisms in our culture that really, teach them how to cultivate that in themselves.
And so, for our young brothers out there, what would you say to them now that they're still, say, free from the justice system? What would you say to our young growing men as they're turning into adults, as we're welcoming them into adulthood? What would be your words to them tonight, Rob?
I've said it many times to a lot of different groups and groups of kids over the years, and I think that they need what I needed at that age. And if they can find this in their life, they need to find it like they need to breathe. And it's to find one person on the planet that really, really cares about them. I don't care if you got to go out and find a stranger. You find somebody who really gives a damn. And if you can find one teacher, just one person who really knows how to cultivate their unique perspective of the sacred, it can make all the difference in the world.
And isn't that interested in LaBrava, how we're coming back into this whole thing of that sense of belonging? We can't do it alone, this sense of isolation, and how it fuels so much of the dysfunction that we're seeing in our society today. And so that I think what we're saying tonight is that we need to come together. We need to come together as adults, and if we are experiencing that burnout, and for those ones coming up behind us, we got to make our door open to them.
Yeah, they really need to hear that they're not crazy. They really need to hear that they're not unwanted, that they're not just going nuts. You know, they need to have people in their corner who really hear their hearts and hear their heart's song and know how to help them sing that song.
No, that was beautiful. That was beautiful. And so we've been listening to Rob Allbee, the founder of Inside Circle Foundation. He does healing circles inside a Folsom prison, and you can find him on the internet at insidecircle.org.
Yeah.
And I know that they're at a place right now where they are doing some fundraising. Could you tell us a little bit about that? For just a minute.
Yeah, for periodically throughout the year we do fundraisers in order to keep the work going. We bring men from all over the country. In fact, from all over the world. We do 2 4-day events a year where we bring folks from all over the country and the world. People come from Australia and England, men who have done this work, elders who can show kids how to hear their song and sing their song. And we spend 4 solid days with them twice a year, and it costs a lot of money. So we don't get any state funds. This is all from private donations, and we've done it that way intentionally. So we need support. We need your help.
Yeah, and you have shown to the prison system that the correctional department that your programs do work.
Yeah, one of we've got 2 folks that these 4-day trainings that we do. There's one coming up in June, and there's 2 men who were part of the program inside years ago who are now off parole, and we're going to try to get them cleared to be the first 2 to go back inside to help the men that are inside. So. It's been reducing violence. It shows that men who take responsibility for their lives make cleaner, better decisions for everybody. The men that we work with are primarily lifers. A lot of people ask us, why do you work with lifers if they're never going to get out? Fundamentally, it's because they're human beings first. But secondly, it's that they're the ones that control the tenor of the prison for people who are going in and out. And have a lot of effect on the men who are coming back to us. So to do nothing is a real tragedy. So we're just trying to make a difference.
Yeah, and that sort of ties into what Bruce was saying earlier, that in their prayers, that what they talk about is love and kindness. And what I'm hearing you say is that in your prison work that you've reduced the violence.
Yeah.
And brought some kindness in those circles.
Yeah, I mean, let me be clear. It's still prison. There's still violence. There's still a lot of violence, and we don't reach everybody. But for those men who do want to make that choice, at least it's there.
Okay, very good. Well, thank you so much, Rob, for giving us your perspective, and I think probably most valuable words that I heard was that for us as men and women, that we need to reach out to our younger ones, those teenagers that we call the problem ones, right? We need to reach out to them and cover their backs, let them know that I'm here for you unconditionally.
I think that's very, very much lacking in their lives. Like Rob says, we are trained from kindergarten to see what we're lacking rather than to rejoice in what we do have.